and human dignity. They have raised their voice against unjustified deployment of troops in our neighborhoods, and they continue to fight for all Angelenos, including those who are too often left without a voice. They remind us what it means to lead with courage and compassion. Please join me in welcoming the Mayor of the City of Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass.
Thank you very much. And also, we want to congratulate our new chancellor of the Community College District. Good morning, everyone. I think that this is such an important morning because I often say to people in Los Angeles, we're not a city that interacts with the military on a daily basis like a lot of cities around the country. And I think it is just so critically important that we understand what it means when we have men and women who do not have a choice when they are deployed where they go to, what it means to have them deployed in this manner. And it's such an honor that I stand before you today with incredible men and women who have devoted their lives to fighting on behalf of our country and who all feel appalled at the misuse of our troops right now, the militarization that has taken place of the National Guard, the inappropriate deployment of the Marines to our city streets, neither of whom are trained and ready to do urban, whether you are doing crowd control or dealing with conflicts on a domestic basis. That is not what our Marines do. They are not authorized to make arrests. They are not doing the work of our local and state law enforcement. They're not trained to do that, and they were never needed to do that. There were recent articles that talked about hundreds of soldiers who were basically looking at video games and doing nothing, again, because they were not needed. I am glad that 2,000 of the National Guard were sent back home, but I think that we need to be sensitive to the fact that these men and women, especially in the National Guard, are part-time. They had to leave their families, they had to leave their employment, they had to leave their education. That's not what they signed up for. We need the National Guard to assist us and prepare for fire season, not for an inappropriate deployment where they are just guarding a building that is not under attack. But the administration, we know, has retreated on some of the forces. But we need all of the troops to return home and to not be here, to not be used as political stunts, to not be used to intimidate Angelenos, to not be used as pawns. But we want to end this deployment now, and that's what we're here to say and share with you. But in the speakers that come next have real stories that illustrate why this is so inappropriate and the consequences of it. Now, let me talk about what we should be doing in reference to our troops. When they end their deployments, when they end their service, you know that we have hundreds, if not thousands, of veterans who are homeless on our streets. We had 3,000 unused housing vouchers because the policy nationally had been, up until recently, that if you were a veteran and you took veterans benefits like your disability benefits, we counted it as your income, and then we said you made too much money, and we would rather keep a voucher doing absolutely nothing, not housing somebody. It took a year. We changed that policy, so now we can end veteran homelessness. And down from 3,000, we now are down to about 1,400 vouchers. So we are housing veterans. That's what we need to do. We need to take care of the troops so they don't have to rely on public assistance while they are serving, especially military families. And once they leave the service, we need to honor that service and not accept any veteran ever to be sleeping on our streets. So with that, let me introduce someone who I'm particularly proud to call a colleague in public service, and that is our state Senator Caroline Menjivar, who is a proud veteran. Senator.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning. My name is Senator Caroline Menjivar, and welcome to the great Senate District, Senate District 20, the heart of the San Fernando Valley, a wonderful community college, and I want to thank the Chancellor for opening their doors. Ladies and gentlemen, this past Friday, 15 years after having graduated myself from Marine Corps boot camp in Parris Island, I attended the graduation of 305 new Marines. Marines that were just recently made, just like those that came before, for the past 250 years of the Marine Corps, to win our nation's battles. Men and women who continue to join the smallest branch to be part of a legacy of courage, valor, and victory on the battlefield. A legacy that includes campaigns of the Battle of Iwo Jima for its fierce fighting, the Battle of Chosin Reservoir in Korea for its resilience even while Marines were outnumbered, and the Battle of Bella Wood, where we earned the nickname Devil Dog, a name we proudly carry today. Now, that legacy shares a space with what? The Battle of LA against people of color? This is why it was so personal and infuriating to me to see 700 of my brothers and sisters in the Corps deployed to my backyard. Because we did not sign up to intimidate and potentially take military action against Americans on American soil who are exercising their constitutional right to protest. But they send young women and men into the same communities they were from, impacting the overall unit morale. Because we know from the many calls that came into the GI rights hotline, some service members did not want to support this action or play any role in ICE in deporting people because they consider immigrants part of their community or they themselves had immigrants within their own families. Others said that they did not want to point guns at citizens, and some even worried that this was getting us close to martial law. That fear came to reality when Marines made their first detainment in LA. And you know who they first detained? A veteran. A veteran that was running to make his VA appointment at the federal building. Or when the guardsmen were forced to stand alongside ICE when they detained another veteran during the recent raids in Camarillo. Like me, and so many first-generation Americans, we joined a military to fight and defend a country that our families were not born in, that our families had no roots in, to fight for a country that doesn't always fight for us. But we take great pride in being the first in a family of immigrants, proud to fulfill the dreams of our parents who wanted better for us when they came to this country. But that pride can rip when a country turns its back on you. A feeling I bet 3 male Marines felt a couple of weeks ago after a video went viral of ICE agents pouncing and beating on their father. A father who had 3 sons who decided to join the Corps while he was landscaping the IHOP in the OC. And while 10,000 guardsmen have been able to go back home, we still have service members deployed in LA literally doing nothing. I'm sorry, that is incorrect. They are doing something. They are wasting your taxpayer dollar. Because even Secretary Hegseth said this is going to cost us approximately $134 million and counting. $134 million and counting from a budget that just cut Medicaid. And what that translates to California is Medi-Cal, SNAP, CalFresh, kicking people off health insurance and putting them further into poverty. Our National Guard needs to go back to their jobs as first responders, as healthcare workers, as teachers, and especially back to their role, their important role as the state's counter-drug task force. Service members detaining veterans, detaining the parents of fellow service members. ICE and masked men kidnapping people off the streets. People with all types of legal status getting detained with no criminal record. Raids have caused injuries, heart attacks, and just recently claimed its first soul when Jaime Garcia died trying to evade the immigration raids in Camarillo. This is why I stand here in solidarity with my Marine brothers and sisters, and this morning stand in solidarity with two of my Marine sisters, Janessa to my left and Jessica to my right, and my Army brother, Stuart, to my back right. Demanding that we release these individuals from this fake deployment, and let's make sure we return the trust and dependability that our armed forces have earned from our communities. And I'll end in saying this. Gregory Bovino, no, we will not get used to this. This will not be our norm, and we demand a change. I'd like to now introduce a friend of mine, fellow Marine officer Janessa Goldbeck, CEO of the Vet Voice Foundation.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chancellor. Good morning. My name is Janessa Goldbeck. I served as a combat engineer officer in the United States Marine Corps, and today I lead Vet Voice Foundation, a national nonprofit organization that elevates the voices of veterans and military families to have a say in our democracy. I'm proud to stand alongside the mayor and civic leaders today to raise a principled concern rooted in history, grounded in the Constitution, and shaped by the lived experiences of those of us who wore the uniform. The deployment of active duty Marines and National Guard troops to Los Angeles in support of domestic immigration enforcement is not a routine operation. It is a break with long-standing norms and a decision that should concern every American, regardless of political affiliation. Let's be clear, this is not a natural disaster. This is not a riot. This is not an emergency requiring rescue teams or engineering battalions. This is a civilian law enforcement mission, one that should remain squarely in the hands of civilian authorities. For nearly 150 years, the Posse Comitatus Act has served as a safeguard against the use of federal military forces in domestic policing. It reflects one of the core principles of our democracy, that the military does not enforce the law against the American people. Why? Because the job of the American military is to fight and win wars, not police American neighborhoods. When we blur that line, we don't just risk overreach, we risk something deeper, the erosion of public trust in both our armed forces and in our democratic institutions. We also risk doing harm to the very people who serve the young Marines and Guardsmen being deployed who didn't sign up to be pulled into political stunts. They joined to defend the nation, to respond to natural disasters, to serve with integrity. Putting them in the middle of a contentious domestic enforcement operation is unfair to them and counterproductive for the country. And let's also acknowledge the human reality of what this mission entails. Many of the individuals swept up in these operations are not violent criminals. They are parents, workers, veterans, people who have lived in our communities for years. Some have worn the uniform themselves. Others are the spouses and children of those who have. And to treat every immigrant as a threat, to call in the military as if we're facing an invasion, ignores both our shared humanity and the complexity of the immigration system itself. It reduces people to targets instead of neighbors. We should be working towards policies that are smart, humane, and enforceable, not doubling down on fear. And as a matter of fiscal responsibility, the public deserves answers. How much is this deployment costing? Who's paying for it? We are told that resources are scarce. Republicans in Congress just passed a bill that will throw millions of people off their health care and close hospitals. We're told there's not enough funding for veterans' health care, and 30,000 VA workers have been fired. So let's make it clear. Deploying active duty military inside our cities without clear limits or transparency is not sustainable, it's not a wise investment, and it's not how a free society is supposed to function. This matters far beyond Los Angeles. Once we become accustomed to using troops in this way, what prevents the president from using them again? If the military can be deployed to enforce immigration law today, will it be sent to respond to civil protests in Chicago tomorrow, to supervise elections in 2026? Today we're here to draw a line. Respectfully, firmly, and without ambiguity, this is not normal, this is not strategic, this is not American, and this is not what the U.S. military is for. Thank you, and Semper Fi. Oh, I'm so sorry. And now I'd like to introduce Stuart Waldman, Army veteran. Vika. Did I say that right? Vika, sorry.
Thank you. Stuart Waldman, Army veteran, and President and CEO of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, VICA. I'm not happy to be here. We shouldn't be here. There's no need for this. It's ridiculous what's happening. Speaking as an Army veteran and someone who's been a Angelino since 1978, no one ever wants to see troops deployed into our city. and especially for something that is so needless. As a business leader, we are concerned that this is the chilling effect that this is having on our local economy. Businesses have consumers who aren't coming right now. They have workers who don't want to come to work because they're afraid or have to leave work because something's happening to a family member. This is overkill, it is unnecessary, and it needs to stop. And now I'm going to introduce Brandy Jones, Co-Executive Director and Organizing Director of Secure Families Initiative.
Hi everyone, thank you for inviting me to speak today, Mayor Bass. I'm Brandy Jones, the Co-Executive Director of Secure Families Initiative. I am also the granddaughter of a Black American Revolutionary War veteran. I'm also the granddaughter of a Black Medal of Honor recipient, and I am the spouse of an active duty service member. And I'm here to share with you what these experiences have taught me. What we are seeing on our streets today in Los Angeles is not what our military signed up for. It is not what our military is trained for. Marines are trained for combat, Marines are trained for war, and Marines are trained to protect and defend the Constitution. When our families see this deployment on our streets against our own community members, there is a cost for our families, and that cost is generational. When our families see our military members used as political props in front of government buildings for optics, that is not the service our families agreed to. We are here to say that in our community, we are hurting as well. There is a military spouse reaching out to me whose family who is serving is deployed currently in Los Angeles, and she just had a stroke. In the military, we do not have family medical leave policies. So that spouse is left alone, silenced, and without any help. We agree for these deployments to happen when they're in protection of our democracy, when they are in protection of our Constitution, but not as policy and political props. So we want you to know, as military families who serve, we want you to exercise your constitutional rights. When we see you exercising those rights that our loved one defends and protects, it makes us proud. It makes sure our service is not in vain. We are your military. When you see us used in ways that you do not agree with, that you think is unsafe or unconstitutional, please join the spouses at Secure Families Initiative that I proudly represent and myself in contacting your Congress member and reaching out to your senator, speaking your voice to your elected officials, and exercising all of the rights that we protect and sacrifice for every day. We are here in solidarity, and we would like to see this stop now. Thank you so much. I'm going to also acknowledge my colleague, Shalina Critchlow, our regional organizer at Secure Families Initiative.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shalina Critchlow. I'm a descendant of the Liseño Rincon Band of Indians and Santa Isabel Ipe Nation. I'm a regional organizer for Secure Families Initiative, and more personally, I stand before you as a military parent. Just last year, I watched my son deploy to the Red Sea. When the conflict in Gaza and Israel escalated, I felt a kind of helplessness that no parent should ever have to feel, a fear that grips your heart and doesn't let go. Last month, when I was in Los Angeles to do what every American has a right and duty to do, to speak out, to stand up, and to advocate for peace. But what I saw broke my heart. I saw our own sons and daughters in uniform, the same young people we raise, support, and pray for being used to face down their fellow citizens. That's not why they put on the uniform. That is not what our military families or our service members signed up for. Our military is supposed to serve all of us. They're the protectors of democracy, not pawns in a political game. Let me be clear. The men and women in uniform are not props. They are not tools of division. They are our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, and they deserve respect, care, and leadership worthy of their sacrifice. So today, I stand as a first American demanding better for our troops, for our military families, and for our future. Thank you.
Voy a decir unas palabras en español. Voy a ser breve, pero tengo unos comentarios que hacer. Sí. Muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Alberto Román. Soy el rector del Colegio Comunitario del Distrito de Los Ángeles. Es un orgullo servir a los 9 colegios comunitarios de nuestro distrito. Me da un placer darles la bienvenida aquí al Colegio de Los Ángeles Mission College. Y como inmigrante y el primero en liderar este distrito con el consentimiento, experiencia y entender la lucha que enfrentan muchas personas y familias dentro de nuestra comunidad, especialmente aquellas personas que buscan en este país seguridad, oportunidades y una vida mejor. Aquí en el distrito estamos al lado de nuestras comunidades estudiantiles, emigrantes y todas sus familias. Aquí nosotros rechazamos completamente las tácticas de miedo, de terror y cualquier acción que amenace la confianza y la seguridad de nuestra comunidad. Por eso estoy honorado de estar con el alcalde de Los Ángeles, Mayor Karen Bass, y la senadora Carolina Menjivar. Ellos son los líderes que están comprometidos con su equidad, justicia y dignidad humana. Ellos han logrado levantar la voz de nuestra comunidad contra la injusticia que se presenta de las tropas de nuestros vecindarios. Ellos han dado la cara por nuestra comunidad angelina, especialmente para aquellas personas que no tienen voz. La alcaldesa y la senadora nos recuerdan lo que es ser líderes con coraje y compasión. Por favor, muchas gracias les damos ahora con todos los que están aquí presentes, que son familias de comunidades militares o ellos mismos estuvieron en el servicio militar. Estamos en contra de las injusticias que han pasado en los últimos meses, que fueron injustas y que también toman recursos que se pueden usar para otras cosas como Medicaid y como el programa de SNAP. Muchas gracias. Estamos listos para preguntas.
I'm going to do it in Spanish too, español. Buenos días, mi nombre es Caroline Menjivar y soy la senadora estatal del Distrito 20, un distrito que tiene el honor de tener el desfile para los veteranos más grande en el condado de Los Ángeles. Y estoy aquí no solo como una senadora, pero también como una veterana en el Marine Corps, para recordarles que el ejército, o específicamente el Marine Corps, es un departamento que fue entrenado para batallas, que fue entrenado para ser un departamento tan difícil, fue un departamento hecho con entrenamiento, en realidad, para matar, para defender, no para andar en las calles de Los Ángeles. Y viernes pasado tuve la oportunidad de ir a una graduación donde 305 nuevos marines se graduaron. Y lo que yo vi, que la mayoría de gente que estuvo allí eran latinos. Esos son las gentes que están diciendo que van a ser parte de un ejército que quizás sus padres no nacieron en este país. Son primeros generaciones americanos que están diciendo que van a defender un país que su familia no tiene conexiones. Pero aún todavía se ponen el uniforme para decir que van a defender un país que por la primera vez va a cambiar la historia de su familia. Y el Departamento de los Marines tiene una historia de valor, una historia de victoria, una lista tan grande de las batallas que han ganado en los últimos 250 años. Y para mí lo que me da miedo, que vamos a agregar a esa lista una batalla en Los Ángeles, que no es una batalla en realidad. Lo que estamos viendo son los latinos en uniforme que están viniendo a las comunidades latinas, arrestando a sus tíos, a sus tías, a sus abuelitos, trayendo un senso de un sentimiento de fear, se me olvidó el nombre, de miedo, gracias, de miedo. Y yo les digo, le pregunto al presidente, al secretary, ¿por qué? Estos son jóvenes y jovencitas que dijeron y tomaron el oath para defender su país, no para traer miedo a sus familias. Y estoy aquí con mis hermanos y hermanas veteranos, con la alcaldesa, en decir, suficiente, ya no más. Gracias.
Flood the zone in sanctuary cities. He was speaking in New York, where apparently there was a robbery where an undocumented immigrant shot an off-duty port employee. Clearly, your call has been directed. This isn't the first time you've asked for this. It's on deaf ears. I just want who is the audience for this? The president has made it clear, Mr. Holman just today, saying that they're going to come back. Is not your only avenue through the court.
Well, no. I mean, I do think the courts are critical, and, you know, we had a court victory a week and a half ago with the temporary restraining order stopping the, you know, the capturing of people on our street. But I think that it is absolutely critical that we continue to raise our voices and to point out the hypocrisy and contradictions of what is happening here. And one of the biggest reasons for this, Conan, is for Angelenos to understand where we're not completely embedded and immersed with the military like a lot of other cities, for the American public to think about the fact that this is a complete misuse of our troops and our taxpayer dollars. As many of the individuals here will tell you, you have active duty families where they can't afford to pay for childcare. Why don't we take care of our men and women who are in the military and their families using tax dollars that way? Because I think if we didn't do this, if we had no protests or anything like that, then maybe the administration would take away the signal that this is okay, that communities are going to accept it. And what I guarantee you, if they flood the zone in New York or some of these other cities, they're going to be met with a massive backlash.
So my question is two, please. One, last week you and I talked, and you made one attempt to reach out to the White House, which...
There's been more than one attempt.
And you told me that you were going to make a second.
Yes, yes. No, but you know, I'm not going to stop requesting. And so, go ahead. It's okay.
So then that takes me to the next step. I couldn't turn on the television this weekend and not see it. We know the president watches television, so if your message...
Well, maybe I'll hear something this week, huh?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Was that part of the strategy to get out there? We haven't seen you out there like we did this week.
Well, I hope that that will continue, but not just me. I mean, listening to the men and women who serve our country, people who have served, and their response, their concern, people on the street, the businesses that are impacted, as Stuart mentioned. This is a blow to our city in so many different ways, and the economic factor needs to be talked about a lot. The economic factor of wasting taxpayer money, the economic factor of as long as this climate of fear continues, people are not going to go to work. They're not going to patronize businesses. We had a raid in Brentwood the other day where they were rounding up gardeners and landscapers. It's hard for me to believe they're hardened criminals. Nobody is standing here defending hardened criminals. That's not what this is about. This is about everyday working people who are trying to survive and who are not being able to because of the climate of fear that has been placed over our city. I don't don't know if there's, I don't look at it that way. I will continue to reach out to them until they respond. You know from our conversation yesterday that, you know, we had a meeting set with Bovino, but at the last minute he canceled it.
Next question is Samantha and then Julia.
You're in a district in the northeast San Fernando Valley that is predominantly Latino, that has a large immigrant population. Just down the street we have the San Fernando swap meet where it's entirely empty now. What is being done to actually protect these communities, to help these communities that are being terrorized? And and what is the city and what can the state do to actually help these communities like the northeast San Fernando Valley where you're currently?
Great question, and I want to tie into the first question also as to why we continue doing this if it's landing on deaf ears. It's because our constituents are constantly asking us, what are you doing? Because if we stay silent, then there's only one narrative, one angle. And Secretary Noem just yesterday said and lied and said, we are not profiling people and we are not just arresting people of color. That's a lie. So what are we doing here in the Northeast San Fernando Valley is as much as we can with the limited power that we have, right? You're right that we're winning in the court, or our process is through the courts, but what we're doing is know your rights. We're seeing a change of people to understand that people can't just go onto private property, that they're locking their doors. Businesses are adjusting business hours to accommodate to individuals. What we're doing is a lot of know your rights workshops. On the Senate, we are providing materials to be handed out to individuals. We are partnering with interfaith leaders to hold standing vigils in unity, because if we don't do that, people won't see our force and presence demanding change. So we are, once, bringing our presence to letting them know that we're here, delivering meals to people's homes who are not coming out to go grocery shopping. We're finding volunteers to do that kind of work. We're uniting to put together community hubs at churches, at temples, for people to come and feel safe and have a space to have conversations. I can't go up and stop a federal agent myself. You'll see that they will arrest us. But what we're doing is the need to ensure that their basic needs are being met. The mayor on the city level, and she could speak to that, are looking to how we can help supplement or supplant some of the finances that people are losing because they're not going to work. So from letting them know our presence is there, to sharing our message, to also flooding the media to hear our angle, those three things need to go hand in hand.
Julia and then Victor.
Question for the mayor. I just wanted to check on the status of the chief recovery officer for the fires. Is that a position you're definitely still planning to fill it? If so, do you have a timeline for it?
Yes, soon. Soon, in the next few weeks. Let me just say, too, that in terms of the city, it's not the valley that has a large Latino population. The city of Los Angeles has 3.8 million people, with 50% being Latino. So this has city-wide impact. And in terms of what the city is doing, we have our family resource centers where people can go and receive services and support. And then working with we're very fortunate here because we have community-based organizations that have been around for over 4 decades who focus on immigrant rights and supportive services for immigrant communities, well-established institutions, and we work in partnership with them. So I think that our city is fortunate. I worry about other cities around the country. But I'll tell you, 3 days after the first raids, I was on a Zoom call with over 120 mayors. So people are very, very concerned. I got a text message from the governor's office in Oregon, concerned that Portland or other cities in Oregon are next. I do think that they were sending a message with our city coming to the nation's second largest city, and if they thought they could get away with it here, which is back to Conan's point, is that if they think they can get away with it here, then they can get away with it anywhere. And that's why it's important for us to be very vocal and consistent in our opposition.
Can you address how this has affected tourism?
You know what, I can't, and Stuart might know. I don't have any specific data on that right now. I can tell you, though, that a few weeks ago, there was a major soccer game in Pasadena, and the attendance was way down. You know, we can't send, we are 11 months away from the World Cup. We have to send a message of welcoming and inclusion, not a message of fear, that if you come here, even legally with papers, you might be detained. You know there's people going to their immigration appointments that wind up being detained, people with papers who are here legally who wind up being detained.
Say, Mayor, do you have office of any indication? Last week there was a raid up in Sacramento.
Yeah.
The most northern part thus far. Does your office have any indication if that's the result of the court action that was taken in the Central District?
That is what I've heard. I've heard that was a specific slap at the governor. But part of what we're dealing with, Conan, that is so disruptive is a lot of what we're doing, a lot of our movements are based on rumors. We hear a rumor that there might be a raid. We hear a rumor that this might last 30 days. It might last 60 days. There's a rumor that that was a particular slap at Governor Newsom. So it's just difficult when there isn't that communication to know specifically what is going on.
Mayor, we've heard the money amount bandied about as far as $130-some million, for this deployment. Could you put that in context? Like, what did the city do with the chunk it changed?
Oh my, well first of all, let me just say, aside from the 130, how about the 30 that we had to spend unnecessarily in police overtime because of the protests that wouldn't have happened if the raids didn't happen. So that 130 million we could be using to get our city ready for the World Cup. So many uses. You know, we're dealing with a budget deficit right now that we're trying to close. So I could speak all day about things we could use. We could increase city services. We wouldn't have to worry about laying off anyone. A number of things that could be used. And by the way, first and foremost, 130 million should be used for our troops, our active troops, to support child care. You know, we have members, active members of the military, whose families have to apply for public assistance because they don't make enough to survive. I think if the general public understood the condition of our troops, what happens with families, they would really be appalled.
Last question, Ronnie.
Senadora, tengo una pregunta para usted con referente al tema de los indocumentados. ¿Qué se está haciendo desde el Senado con referente al tema de los indocumentados en vista que se presentó una propuesta de ley para reforma migratoria y no fue a través de la Casa Blanca, dijeron que no estaban aceptando esa propuesta? ¿Ustedes qué están promoviendo desde el Senado para tratar de frenar un poco estas redadas?
Pero como saben que en el Estado no tiene el poder en cambiar leyes sobre inmigración. Creo que lo que está hablando es sobre una congresista de Florida que introdujo una nueva ley, Dignity, creo que se llamaba, ¿verdad? Pero nosotros no tenemos poder de hacer eso. Lo que sí podemos hacer aquí en el estado de California es haber maneras de abrir nuestros programas a todo tipo de personas, ¿verdad? Por eso hacemos el Medical for All, que es aceptado para cualquier persona y no importa su estatus legal. En el Senado lo que estamos haciendo es tratar de pasar leyes sobre las máscaras que estamos viendo. La gente que no dice de dónde es, no da su número de badge o algo así. Tenemos dos propuestas ahorita por el senador Wiener y también sobre senadora Pérez y el senador Areguín sobre demandando que las personas federales aquí en California no pongan máscaras para cubrirse la cara y tengan que decir de dónde vienen, porque estamos viendo que unos no son ICE agents, son quizás county bounty hunters que están en realidad kidnapping nuestras familias. Y la otra ley que estamos viendo es sobre la salud, que no vayan a entrar a los hospitales, a las clínicas, porque lo que estábamos viendo en Glendale Memorial Hospital, que habían ICE agents esperando a una señora afuera por horas y horas hasta que se saliera de su cita. Esos son los temas que podemos, debajo de nuestro poder, en cambiar. Desafortunadamente, ahí está el límite de nuestro poder en este tema.
Can I just say that I really appreciate the senator responding, because as she went down a number of laws that are being worked on in Sacramento, like the masking and the bounty hunters and all, she mentioned one in terms of health. And, you know, people aren't showing up for their well child appointments, which means kids aren't getting vaccinated. So people are staying at home, and so it also compromises the health of the community. So you're talking about the economy, you're talking about the safety, and you're talking about the health of families. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. That's not what I was saying, but go ahead. Well, first of all, I wasn't saying that. I mean, what the military is being used for is to guard 2 buildings. That's what they're being used for. You have about 100 troops in the Westwood Federal Building, and you have probably less than that over in the downtown building. The point is that there's nothing for them to do here. The last time we had a protest that devolved into some problems was almost a month ago, if not more than a month ago. So they have not, their mission, as far as I know, has not been to remove people. And again, the administration started by talking about hardened criminals. Nobody's defending that you shouldn't remove people who are violent or rapists or in cartels. That hasn't been the issue. But I have always had a hard time believing that the woman standing selling pineapples is a hardened criminal, or the people who were gardeners or landscapers. So that's not, and then we know that over 60% of the people that were detained had no criminal record at all. So what is the point? Thank you.